Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're talking about electrical circuit testing equipment and tools. It's really part 2 of Matt's question on his used truck that he bought with the auxiliary lights not working on the rear bumper. His second part to his question was, what's the best tool to be checking for the powers in the circuit like I was describing? So he wanted to know the best way to go about that. So hopefully this will help him and others going forward understand a little bit about the tools you can use and how they work. So I have a battery box here, and that's going to simulate the battery in the vehicle, obviously. And that's what we'll be using just to show how these things work. So first things first, you got your standard, easiest thing to get, most inexpensive thing to get, your standard 12-volt automotive test light. That end with the clip is for your ground. You hook that up to known good ground. If you're working under the hood, just hook it straight to the negative post of the battery. If you're in the vehicle or under the vehicle, find a good clean surface that you can hook it to that's going to be a good ground. Something metal, not painted. This end, that's where your testing is, so that's what you want to poke into what you're looking for power on. And when you do that and you have power, there is a light bulb in the middle there that lights up. So, to ground on our battery, check for power, and there's the light. So we know we have power there. So you would just go along that circuit that I've drawn in the last one, and where you're checking for your powers all along the way, it lights up, you have power. It's also an easy way to check fuses. If you've ever noticed with a blade fuse, you can see the two pieces of metal sticking through the top. That's actually for this. So you can check on one side, power, check on the other side, no power. That fuse is blown. Pull it out and take a look at it, you'd see that it's blown. You can pick these up any tool store. Parts stores usually sell them. Like I said, quite inexpensive. Next up, also very common, is a multimeter. So this can test for other things as well as amperage, continuity, or resistance, things like that. For our purposes, we're going to be checking for power, so we want to know voltage. So what you're going to want to do, this is an auto ranging meter, as in it picks the scale that you need. You just switch it to the V with the straight line and the 3 dots. That means it's DC voltage that we're testing, which is what you're going to find in automotive, is DC current, DC voltage. The squiggly line is AC, that's what you would find in your house. So not for us. So what I'm going to do is I'll try and place that there. Hopefully it shows up okay. So similar to test light, one for ground, one for checking power. Hook that probe to ground. When you find power, it'll come up on the screen. What do we got? 12.66 it says. So my battery box is charged. That's good news. It's putting out the voltage. So test along that circuit, make sure you're good on ground, and check for your powers all along there. The nice part about the multimeter, that it'll tell you a little bit more, and that it'll tell you if you actually have low power, or so there's something that's a problem in the circuit, like a bad power. So say in that original one, the way that it's most likely wired for Matt, on the power side control, the switch on the power side, say you were checking for power, and yeah, you had power at the fuse was good, switch was good, power down at the light, ground, you tried jumping, still isn't turning on. So everything seems like it should be working. Well, when you check for power at the light with the multimeter, then you see you only got 6 volts out there. So something like the switch could be bad. The switch could be worn out from all the arcing being on the power side, and it's got corrosion, whatever's going on, but basically it's not sending full current through the signal, full voltage through the rest of the circuit. And that's where you got your problem. So your problem is actually a bad power. A lot less common, but the multimeter can help you find that, whereas the test light couldn't really. So that's the potential upside of that. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're not really expensive. You can get a pretty basic one that has a manual scale as opposed to an auto ranging like this one. And same thing. Find them at a tool store. You can find those at parts stores even too. And they're relatively cheap and easy to pick up. So the last tool is my favorite, but it's definitely geared more towards a professional. It's from a company called Power Probe, and their tool is called the Power Probe. Shocker. So it's basically like a fancy test light. So that's what it looks like. You got a probe for the end. And then it comes with 2 ends for the other end. That's the battery clamp one. Or it does come with a handy one if you're working inside the vehicle. You can plug just into your auxiliary power, and away you go. But it does need to be powered up, unlike the test light where it's just testing for power at the vehicle. So what you do, plug that guy in, We'll hook it up to the battery. You see it does have 2 lights on it there, which I love, because when you're working under a vehicle or under the dash, wherever you're testing, you can see it shines up very nicely, and you can see what you're actually testing. Pretty handy. So this guy here is going to work similar to a test light, like I said. By the way, this is the Power Probe 2. They do have newer ones, fancier ones now. They're up to 4. They might even have a 5, or I'm sure they're working on a 5. The newer one has a digital here instead of the light. The digital readout tells you your voltage, which basically makes it handier like the multimeter for those reasons. Also on computer controlled circuits, a lot of times it's only 5-volt reference, so you'd be able to identify that a little bit quicker as not a bad power, but oh, it's 5 volts, it's computer reference. Anyways, that's more advanced, not to worry about in this situation. So this guy, you're just going to touch the power, and you can hear the sound that it makes and see the red light. You know you have power. So going along that circuit, same thing as the test light, except you get the audible warning as well, which I like, because then you know, yep, power, yep, power, yep. You know, the other thing, and this is what makes it good, there's, well, other things make it good, but it can also check for grounds quite easily. So you go to the ground, you get a green light and another audible signal. The reason why that's nice is, say we go back to that same thing on power side control, like we were talking about, you found there's power going to the fuse looked okay, and then you go to your next connection, whether that's at the switch or just after the fuse there, and you're checking it, and there's no power, but it does that. By doing that, it tells you that the rest of that circuit is grounded, as in the rest of that circle is complete to ground. So now you know that all that wiring, the switch, the light, and the ground are all good. Your problem is from that point back to the battery, whether it's the fuse itself is actually bad or some sort of wiring there and you're not getting power to that point. So you'd get there anyways with the test light or the multimeter, but this can just help you save a bit of time and effort and gives you a quick answer that way. The other thing you could do is, in that exact same situation, you saw, oh, I have a complete circuit, it's grounded. So the reason why they call it the power probe, with this rocker switch here, that's giving power to the tip. Or the other way, gives it ground. So in that situation, you saw you had a complete circuit. Now you power it up there and you see your light turn on. You know the light works. Again, you know all that wiring's good. Everything's working. Let's just fix our power to that point and we got our problem fixed. Now, fast forward to you did some more testing along the way and you got back to the light and you found, hey, I got good power at the light, but it's not working. Well, go to the other side of the light, the ground side, ground it, light turns on, you know everything's good there. Now you know I just need a new ground, which you would have known with the other 2 tools as well, but it lets you actually physically test it real quick instead of running jumper wires, things like that. So it can save some time, but it is quite expensive. As I said, it is geared towards the professional, so it's a bit of an investment, but if you're an apprentice or a professional, I would highly recommend it because it does work absolutely awesome. So that's my favorite. It works really well. Hopefully this will help you, Matt, get going. Remember, when you're doing this testing, you want to make sure your switch is on so your circuit is complete. There is one thing that you can do if you do find, hey, I got power here and I don't have power here, but it was quite a long distance. There's no switch in between or anything like that. You can do a resistance test or a continuity test with a multimeter. You can't do that with the test light. Again, you would still find the answer with the test light, but just real quick with the multimeter here, if you switch that guy to that symbol right there, that's ohms, that represents resistance, and that'll tell you if 2 things are connected. The way it tells you if they're connected is, as you can see, the scale on there right now says OL. That means it's out of range, or people like to say out of luck, because, well, it's funnier. So if you notice, I'll touch the 2 probe ends together, and now you have a reading. The reason why you have a reading is because they're connected through the multimeter. You have a complete circuit, so it tells you that. So the reason why that can help you is now you know you do have a break between this point and this point, and you can keep narrowing that down the closer you get. You can also narrow it down with the test light by checking for the powers and stuff. So you don't need this to do this. You just need to interpret the information differently. But it can even test the resistance through you, because you can carry electricity. See how you get a reading with me holding it? What am I here? Look at that. That's my resistance. So kind of neat. I just wanted to show that quick, a little bit more advanced again. Nothing really to worry about in this situation because you can still diagnose this basically with the other tools or the test light in pretty simple fashion. You don't need the fancy tool. You can just use the test light. When you are doing a continuity test or the resistance test, you need to make sure there is no power in the circuit whatsoever. So whatever 2 points you're testing between cannot have power. You can actually damage the multimeter. So you don't want to be doing that. That's the only safety tip on that. Other than that, this is how you test. Hopefully it helps you there, Matt. Gets you your answers, gets you the bottom of your problem. If it doesn't, shoot me another message. I'll get back to you as soon as I can and keep guiding you forward. But between all this, I think we got it. The only other thing I can think of is if you can't find your break or you can't find your problem, can't tell what type of circuit it is, we're better off rewiring this thing properly. Getting one of those kits that have the relay and stuff like that. And I'll show that in another video, how that circuit will work and how you can wire it up, give you some guidance there. And that should finalize your problem and your question. I know this turned into several parts. I wasn't really intending that, but I don't want to just ramble on for 20 minutes in one video. And I want to make sure that this gives a complete answer. And with how much aftermarket accessories and lighting there is these days with light bars and things, this problem is very common and the solution is very good information for anybody running into any of that. So there is no such thing as a dumb question, only the one that isn't asked. So if you do have a question, ask this mechanic. Thanks for watching.